الله أصبح لاجئا يا سيدي، صادر إذن حتى بساط المسجد، وبع الكنيسة فهي من أملاكه، وبع المؤذن في المزاد الأسود، فاطفئ ذبالات النجوم فإنها ستضيء درب التائه المتشرد، حتى يتامانا أبوهم غائب، صادر يتامانا إذن يا سيدي، لا تعتذر من قال أنك ظالم، لا تنذعر من قال أنك معتدي، لا تعتذر من قال أنك ظالم، لا تنذعر من قال أنك معتدي، حررت حتى السائمات ولا تخن، أعطيت أبراهام حق محمد، وأردتني عبدا يباع ويشترى، وأردتني يأسا يعيش بلهفتي، لا تعتذر من قال أنك ظالم، لا تنذعر من قال أنك معتدي، حررت حتى السائمات غداة أن أعطيت أبراهام حقل محمد، أنت الرضي قتل الربيع فبيدري غضب يهز وثورة لن تخمتي، أنت الذي دخلت يداك حدائقي وهدت نوما بها المغرم، وبدأت تعبدهم ونعبدهم وهم مستعبد يأتي على مستعبدي، الله أصبح لاجئا يا سيدي، الله أصبح لاجئا يا سيدي.
Thank you, Haneen. Thank you so much. This is Haneen, who is from Gaza, Palestine, and she's an organizer, culture worker, and a singer based currently in Palestine. Thank you, Haneen. If you want to say anything about this song, so we take it fully in, something about the lyrics, that would be lovely. And or anything, just to bring your voice, and we will.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm based in Portugal. I am from Palestine, but I'm based in Portugal now. And the song it's by the artist, the Palestinian artist Reem Banna, and it's called The Absent One. And it's like the lyrics are very powerful. They amplify about like that God have become like a refugee. It speaks about the children in Palestine, and the churches in Palestine, and the power of the people, and how when God has become a refugee, there was no chance but to amplify with power and hope and resistance. And I can say specifically, but in generally speaks about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will share the lyrics later on with the recording to everyone while you're listening again. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. And exactly, we wanted to check in with you. Please type where you're tuning in today, which part of the world, and if you feel inclined to share one word, what is alive for you today? What is happening in your heart? Just one word, so we all connect in this sacred space. And I forgot to mention, my name is Zaya Benazzo, and we are tuning in today from Pomo land and Coastal Miwok land in so-called California.
Yes, and my name is Maurizio Benazzo, and Zaya, beautiful work, you said it all.
Yeah.
Thank you. So,
deep gratitude,
shaky connection,
Miami, Florida.
and present with love.
Love and grief.
Love and grief, kindness the world over.
Curiosity.
Grief.
Deep concern and open-hearted. Happy to join. Sadness. Grief. Love. Grief. Faith.
Honor
solidarity. Grief. Hopeful,
grief, disgust, darkness, open heart,
hope, love,
concern, rage,
overwhelm,
heal, transmutation,
solidarity,
compassion,
tenderness, togetherness,
grief.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And just so quickly to introduce the space, we will take time about 40 to 50 minutes for a conversation with our guests, and then we will open the space for questions. And we invite you to keep your questions really brief so we can hear more voices. And you can either send us your question and we can read it, or you can raise your hand, send your question, and we will bring you on screen. And to send your question, you will see there is a little Q&A box on the just below your screen, the viewer screen. You can submit your question there, and next to it you will see the icon raise hand, so please raise your hand as well. And we want to invite as many voices as possible to the space.
And should we start? I want to introduce Rae, our facilitator for this event. Welcome, Rae. So let me read a brief bio. Rae Abileah, she, her, is a Jewish faith leader, social change strategist, writer, and facilitator. For the past 2 decades, she has worked with nonprofits and social movement. Rae graduated from Columbia University with a dual degree in environmental science and human rights, and received ordination by the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute. She has led human rights delegation to the West Bank with Eyewitness Palestine, and visited Gaza for the global peaceful Gaza Freedom March. She's a first-generation American, and her Dutch, Ashkenazi Jewish, and Israeli ancestry inform her work towards dismantling white supremacy. Rae was raised and currently resides in Ansede, Ramaitush, Holone land on the California coast.
Sorry, Rae, we couldn't shorten the bio. It was too hard. We tried. You failed everything important. Welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to facilitating this conversation. Space.
So grateful for the invitation. Thank you, Zaya, Maurizio. Again, hello, everybody. I'm Rae, as Maurizio mentioned. I live here on unceded Ramaitush Ohlone land. I just want to give honor to the First Nations and Indigenous peoples where I live and where each of us are tuning in from. If you, like me, are a guest on the lands where you reside currently. I welcome you into practices of repair, reciprocity, rematriation, and reparation with the peoples on the land where you live as appropriate. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to you both, Zaya and Maurizio, for continuing to literally invite us into your living room. Here we are in your home with you. And you know, we gather and we imagine that we're in one shared living room, and we have the magic of technology to make us feel that way, but I want to really bring us into our hearts in that way. And that's really the intention of what we're here to do, is to literally create more space, more room, more connection, so we can have more living room, more breathing room, right? For freedom, for all people. And I want to presence all these different emotions people are coming in with. And our great poet Rumi reminds us that being human is a guest house. So we welcome all those emotions, and we know they're guests passing through, right? And I want to just put out a reminder. All of us need it. I need it often myself, for self-care, for being exquisitely kind to ourselves and to each other in this space. You each have your own tools, and I know those in the SAND network are often therapists and teachers of these tools, right? But it doesn't hurt to have a reminder to use the tools that work best for you if you become triggered or frustrated, challenged, that we can come back to the breath. We can come back to our bodies. I see Zaya there with a glass of water, right? You remember this wisdom that when we drink water, we tell our animal bodies that we're safe, that we're not being hunted or chased or in danger, right? So you take a glass of water, you take a sip, right? That water that cools fire. So we welcome being uncomfortable together in this conversation. And we welcome vulnerability and heart. And we also know that while we meet on Zoom and have this conversation in this comfort and safety, that there are bombs continuing to drop on our beloved kin, that people are starving and disease is spreading right now in Gaza, and that there are still Israeli hostages being held and thousands of Palestinian prisoners being held. And that also that many of us have not had the time to mourn our beloved dead since October 7th and ongoing. And so we wanted to take a moment of silence in remembering the beloved dead, some whose names we might know and many whose names we do not. And we just take a moment to presence them. And coming back to presence together, welcoming the wise, well ancestors, the peacemakers, those who have come before us, who have made the way for conversations like this to happen. Today's about listening to journeys of transformation, about change. You know, some of us are out there in the streets calling for change about many different social issues of our time, but what does it mean when we have a change inside of ourselves? And the courage and audacity it takes to share that in this time of truth and needing to live out our truths. So I want to welcome one of our first person to share here, dear friend Sulaiman Khatib. And Sulaiman, you didn't just wake up one day and get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Your accolades have been hard achieved amidst a life that has included more time in prison than I can begin to imagine. And I want to, rather than introduce your full bio, we'll get a chance to hear about your books later, but give you an opportunity to share your story and share with us about your family, the land that is home to you for so many generations, and your journey to come to sit and be with us today.
Thank you, Rae. Thank you, everyone here that's joining, and thanks for the team to put this beautiful event together. Just want to make sure the logistic, do you hear me? Like the sound is good?
Yes.
I'm trying to come closer to the laptop. Yeah, thank you. And really, Yeah, it's almost hard for me to share about my personal story while all the yeah, the war going on in Gaza, and also just not far from me. I speak from Ramallah now. People getting killed. Also in Tul Karim, since a few days, there are in a siege. There are a lot of violence happening right now. Still, I feel also very emotional from Haneen when she was singing, because Haneen is really good friend to me, and we're in touch, and her family house was demolished yesterday in Gaza. Was yeah. So yeah, trying to stay strong and grounded in this situation. Something here, okay. Yeah, as I said, I'm speaking to you from Ramallah. I born in Jerusalem, and my family has lived in a town northeast of Jerusalem, like 7 minutes from the city center of Jerusalem. My family actually was um, registered and recorded in the Ottomanic records in the 15th century. So I come from very, to say, indigenous family that lived in this land for centuries, and that's the only place that we belong to, like my family, my tribe. Yeah, I grew up as many like families around here that really connected to the region, connected to the culture, to the folklore, and to the Palestinian story of all its sides, the tragedy sides and the trauma and the Nakba, everything, and also and to the political and to also the culture. And I basically was also I started my activism from a young age compared to my generation, maybe at the time. I'm almost 52, so if people wonder which era we're talking about. Yeah, I come from a family that really participated in different generations of fighting colonization, like even before Israel, we're talking about the British colonization and before that. So I come from that line. My older brother was in jail when I was 12 years old. At the time also, I used to play flute. So I don't sing like Haneen, but I play the flute. So I know the Palestinian music, and some of it actually was at the time illegal. You can be jailed for 6 months for having like this kind of music in my generation. So yeah, when I was 13, 14, I started my little group to fight the occupation. Of course, we're talking about kids, means writing slogans on the wall of Free Palestine, raising the Palestinian flag, which was illegal also in my school outside of Jerusalem. Yeah, throwing stones, training to make cocktail, Molotov cocktail, the English term. In the end, the Israelis has built a big settlement between my village and the city of Jerusalem, where I grew up, where my family grew up, where, this was our daily city life, basically, in Jerusalem. The settlement called Pisgat Zev, and this cut the historical cultural ties between my community and Jerusalem. And so for me personally, I want to basically I was simple like to protect our homeland, like literally to say. Yeah, so I've been very connected at that time with some young political activists. So I had access to some political secret magazines and some books and some leaders at the time. And like short the story a little bit, it's a long story. I decided with a friend of mine to attack two Israelis in order to take their weapon, in order to use them later on. We tried to have weapons, we couldn't. So I was 14 and 5 months exactly. So we did stab two Israeli soldiers near my town. And this ended up with two Israelis were injured, slightly injured actually, and we were taken to the jail after a few days. Yeah, so this is my life before jail. And in jail time, I was the youngest prisoner for a while, a political prisoner. Maybe it's important to mention for Palestinian prisoners in West Bank, it's a military law. So it doesn't matter the age, and there is no international law or any rights, basically. So in jail time, I used to go back and forth to the court. I became 15 years old, and I was sentenced to 15 years in jail. My family's home, my room in my family's home was blocked with cement and iron for the next 10 years. When I was in jail as a family punishment for the family. Yeah, in jail, I continue my activism with other prisoners. The political prisoners were very organized into different factions. So I was affiliated or part of a Fatah movement that led by Arafat. So we used to have like more than like 10, 11 organizations, you know, Popular Front, Popular Democracy, and so on, so many organizations. But the structure in jail, basically, the Palestinian prisoners has succeeded to build kind of a revolutionary system, to say. And part of that, in order to improve the daily life in jail, adopted or learned by the Irish prisoners, the food hunger strike strategy works very well. So the Palestinian prisoners, we learned that from Ireland, just to give a credit back. Yeah, so my first hunger strike, I was 15 with 120 kids. I was living with teenagers underage. We had a food hunger strike for 16 days. We used to call it in Arabic, meital, means salt and water. Because we don't eat at all. We drink a lot of water and little salt to stay alive. Yeah, so this is my first hunger strike, and basically we usually demand like 30 demands or 25 demands of improving the conditions in jail, and we always succeed. The last hunger strike was for 17 days with 4,000 prisoners, all prisoners across jails. We coordinated the hunger strike and we succeed. So people used to join the hunger strike by choice. Just this is important to mention. And of course, it's the hardest time in jail, I have to say. The time become very slow, your body become very skinny. Some people die, of course. A lot of sicknesses, and there's a lot of strategies that the Israeli administration of the jail, the police, would use to break the hunger strike, to move leaders from jail to other jail, and punishment, and so many other strategies. We don't maybe have time to count to call them all. But for me, like this was a life transformation experience, and that's how I got to learn about nonviolence. Yeah, and the power of nonviolence and the choice of nonviolence as a choice, not out of weakness. And a lot of things, you know, I want to maybe you mentioned Rumi, Ray, so I'm happy that you mentioned Rumi, because I was not religious person to say, most of the prisoners actually. But there were some spiritual practices and cultural practices from our indigenous culture that really help us stay strong in jail. For example, I spent some time alone in jail, like in a, what do you call it in English? Like as a punishment.
Voluntary
like
confinement.
Yeah, like in a cell alone for punishment. And also the investigation time include a lot of torture, like physical and psychological torture. So not easy. I was there when I was like 14 and a half, 15. So yeah, you need to stay strong. That's not simple thing. When you are alone and isolated from the other prisoners. So, you know, like songs like They Can't Jail Our Bodies, They Can't Jail Our Souls. I'm sure Haneen knows this, of Gawar. So they're like these kind of songs that I grew up with, these like revolutionary songs. So during the jail time, I spent 10 years and 5 months in jail, basically my teenager time. And as I said, I was very active in jail also to one, we did a lot of strategies of using our time in jail to learn about other revolutions in the world. And it's really important for me to mention that jail is not a peace academia, but we do learn about different, I know about the Nelson, now we're speaking about South Africa and the court. Just important to mention Nelson Mandela is a very important figure for Palestinian prisoners at the time and still. And of course, we learn about the African-American struggle, the Indian and other history of colonization and revolutions and so on. So basically, we used to have like a few sessions in jail among the prisoners, and this was illegal by the Israelis. But prisoners were talking about students, and everyone is teaching something to the other prisoners. As I said, we used to call it a revolutionary university. Yeah, so through my jail time experience, I have to say, yeah, I studied as much as I could. I worked in the library for some time. Also, I know Hebrew from home a little bit because I live around Jerusalem. And I studied Hebrew also. Yeah, and that also gave me like to see different perspective of the story, of course. I just maybe want to mention, because also for people here, it's, yeah, I come from a very strong, rooted family to the land. I grew up with the story. I'm very committed in my family. And it's really not easy to have to, honesty, to still grounded in your own truth and also open your soul, your heart to what we call the other side, the enemy. That's the big shit to say. Sorry for my language. And so for me, it was a long, long journey. And also I come from a tribal family, means like that they still practice all the tribal system of reconciliation, forgiveness, community life, like all the things I believe in Sant community and other communities, maybe in California, I know other places, people are talking about this. I come from this exact type of family with differences, like a very local practices. So in my family, I mean, like there's the forgiveness is a very important element and value in our moral value. So I really believe this was big, important in my story. And I want to say maybe, as we are talking about a global teaching and learning, it's very important really to connect the global teaching to the local culture. And I believe this is one of the only strategies that can work for any future, solutions that can really use this ancient wisdoms that's still here in the place. Anyway, because of the time, so we'll jump to after jail. Yeah, basically also, I start to search with other friends also, how do we stay connected to our cause, to our legitimate freedom and liberation, the need of our liberation and need of freedom, and also finding like alliances in what we call the other side, basically. And after my jail time, I heard with other friends about Israeli refusal that refused to serve in the army after being in the army, just to say. And we, yeah, through a friend, we communicate with each other in the second Intifada. Yeah, in search for like different solutions. And basically, we agreed, like we met secretly for like almost a year of secret meetings, illegally. And of course, this is not a mainstream idea, of course. And so we had agreed on like adopting like non-violent struggle against the occupation. And that was not easy. Like basically what we call in some beautiful ideas, like love the enemy, and this kind of ideas. Like the first time I read about like this love the enemy, I was 15, I was in jail. It's not something simple, but I want to say this also touched a lot, something deep in my heart, and I believe everyone's heart. because we are not born good and bad people. I don't believe in this. We carry everything. And I feel also the ability to, I mean, despite the power dynamic, of course, and the history and the trauma, I come from a very strong, grounding place that I am able also to show empathy to the, as from the oppressor side. That's a big, not easy thing to do, but I also feel my heart is open. Totally, I never lose that. And I don't believe practically to be strategic, also to be just right. I need something that can work as Palestinian. So to speak about it, let's say, from a comfort place, from a privileged place, is a very different story. My family is still, and I myself, of course, and my family still, they live outside of Jerusalem. My family land was taken in 2006-07, when they built half of it, when they built the separation wall. My father got heart attack. I was telling Haneen about this yesterday, because her family house was attacked by Israelis and destroyed in Gaza. And we talked about it. It's not the money part. It's like the olive tree in front of the house, where she grew up, where the childhood, the memories. And I told her I have really something similar, different, because we had some olive trees we call Tromani, which is from old days. And the army has allowed us to uproot them, to take them to the house, and we replant them. And this was heartbreaking for all my family. It's not easy, like you taking the soul, the heart of a person. But lately I just was there a week ago, and next to my family, and I see these trees are born again, like they have new branches. And that gives me a lot of hope and adrenaline. I never lose hope, despite everything. And since I've been out of jail, the small jail, we're now in a big jail. Unfortunately, I'm very active in the struggle, for freedom and for liberation, for justice, and also for healing, and also to humanize everyone. I'm against the system, but I'm against dehumanizing any group of humans. That's basically, and I really, as I said, I feel our freedom is connected. That's what I feel, practically, morally. I don't want to say harm to anybody, basically. And now it's the challenge and the test, and I finish here. It's maybe easy to speak about values when we are in comfort zone, but honesty to speak and to practice these values when it's tested, like now. That's like the real thing. And I'm welcome to live our truth fully also now or anytime. And I feel this is also another way, one of the best moments I live as an activist also. I see that freedom is coming. Thank you.
Inshallah, may it be so that freedom is coming. Thank you, Souli, for your potent words, for bringing us into your story, to your land with your family, the intimacy of that. And I know it's not nothing to go back in time and to tell the story of being in jail is also to relive it in a way. And so the fortitude it takes to do that, and the responsibility that we have listening to your story. And you're very humble to kind of fast forward through what happened in those years after you had those initial meetings with the refuseniks. People might not be aware, but Israel has a conscription, right? A mandatory military service. So when we talk about refusers, these are people who are going against the law to refuse to serve in the military. And that you've co-founded Combatants for Peace. And also the Al-Quds Association for Democracy and Dialogue, and the many achievements you've had in this journey of continuing to see what flowers can we plant that will blossom into freedom. So just really a debt of gratitude to you and your work. And I'm just wanting us to take a moment, let your words land in that we've just heard and witnessed or witnessed, right? And the words of that song, they can jail our bodies, they cannot jail our souls. And I want to invite us now to turn to hearing another story, that of a new friend in the struggle for collective liberation, meital. And meital, Yaniv, you have just written a beautiful book called Bloodlines. Many of us are schlepping it around, carrying it in our bags. It's a kind of ancestral journey of healing, of, we say in Hebrew, tikkun, of repair. Would love to welcome you to share with us a bit about your story as someone who was born in Israel, as an Israeli who has gone through that military training and had embodied experience of dissonance with that, and to share what feels most resonant for you about your story today with us. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. Souli, thank you so much for all the details shared and feeling felt. And I'm just holding those olive trees and the lineages and the prayers that they maintain. Thank you. Thank you, Rae. Thank you to the Dissent team. Thank you to everyone who's listening. I am going to start by reading a paragraph from Bloodlines that will help with how we got here. And then we're going to time travel a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to start with this paragraph. I came out of my mother's body naked. After they cleaned the blood and residues of life being made, they buttoned and zipped the army uniform on my infinite body. This uniform is significant. You never outgrow it. You never wash it. It is sewn to move with you, like second skin, like purpose. Wherever you go, it is upon you, awaiting orders. My conception is my indoctrination into soldierhood, raised by my blood state family. This is a collective measure upheld by all fraction of society. A soldier's identity and mentality is something you are groomed for, and then you become it. That shape doesn't leave you when you leave the army. You need to consciously decide to leave your own identity behind, and that is a disorienting process of patience and grief. It is a departure from something your body knows as home. In a typical Israeli family, everyone who is under 17 is being groomed and brainwashed to become a soldier. Everyone between 17 and 21 is an active soldier. Everyone between 21 and 49 is a reserve soldier. Everyone above 49 is raising soldiers. The uniform fabric that is placed on our infinite body stretches until an armor is covering the whole of us. My uniform armor has penetrated all of my senses and has provided me with belonging, coordinates, orientation, and safety. Shedding it is the tearing of my own skin, and I can only break free at the pace of my nervous system, pace of my breath. The butterfly teaches me the way, eating their own shedding to grow stronger inside the cocoon. The stronger they grow, the more pain they endure as their body pushes against the edges. They eat their own shit to become, until by force of creation, of life, they break free and fly. It is a process of trusting without knowing. When I cross paths with a butterfly, I sing to them, "You made it." It is an act of conscious recognition, of gratitude for the deep medicine they share. I eat each piece of shit removed from my body. I eat the shit to transmute the toxin into freedom, digesting and offering it back to the earth. Each bite cracks my spine into deeper alignment. chewing slowly. Nothing true is immediate. Nothing true is immediate. Nothing true is immediate. So to give some more context and nuance, I was born in Tel Aviv in 1984. My family lines, I have an Ashkenazi line from Poland that survived World War II and moved to the newly established so-called Israel in 1949, when my dad was 1 year old. I have an Arab Jewish line that is from Palestine, from Jerusalem, Sephardic Jewish. And I have a grandmother from Greece who's also Sephardic. And those two lines met in the 30s. Both of my grandparents were recruiters for the Lehi. For those who don't know, Lehi is a known Jewish terrorist organization that was fighting the British off the land of Palestine, and very Zionistic. And in those lines, I have fallen soldiers and famous Mossad agents and Air Force commanders and the like. So I was raised in an extremely Zionistic right-wing family, and was bred to continue the line. I grew up in Tel Aviv in a very specific kind of dissociated detachment, where anything that has to do with Palestinian struggle, Palestinian existence, Palestinian land was completely non-existent, removed. Everything that existed was an enemy. That if I don't become strong to protect my grandparents, that enemy will destroy us. That enemy did not have a name, did not have a shape, a form. It was an enemy. And yeah, when I was 18, I voted for Benjamin Netanyahu because that's what I was expected to do, and joined the army. And I was in the Air Force. After 6 months of service, I hate calling it a service. After 6 months of being in the military, my base moved from Tel Aviv to the southern part of historic Palestine. And I was asked to send planes to fuel planes that were going into Gaza. I'm assuming they were F-16s, and this was 2002. And right after that mission, we were moved back to the base. I puked on the way back, and the next day I had to come to have a shift in the base for the weekend, and I had my first panic attack in the entry to the base. And I couldn't enter. I had to come the next day and stand trial. I was grounded to the base. And in those 3 weeks of being grounded to the base, it became very clear to me that I need to leave the army. There was no way for me to stay. And that knowing that breakage of everything I knew that I'm supposed to be for the sake of my grandparents, like that's how this indoctrination works. You have to defend your grandmother. And this is the only way you can defend her. It's through love. It's through belonging and love that this brainwash really washes all of you. Yeah, and in those 3 weeks, I wanted to kill myself because I couldn't imagine living not in this way, that my body was not able to. And yeah, I was 19. I left the army disgracefully. It's not an easy thing to do, just in terms of no one wants you to do it, so they make it very hard. And yeah, and that started a process that I will be in for the rest of my life. I am currently residing on Kuya, Tongva, Luciano, and Serrano lands on Turtle Island. Been in Turtle Island for about 11 years now. And this book, Bloodlines, that I've read from is a prayer to bring the Israeli identity and Israeli state to a loving and caring death. And I say that from a place of personal experience, personal process, personal healing, and personal liberation. I was raised very Israeli, very Tzabar, very not Jewish, which is also a very common thing. And I'm returning to my Sephardic and Ashkenazi lines as a form of healing. And the interesting thing for me is that the more I delve into these practices, that again, like also my Sephardic line has been so assimilated. Ladino was not taught to us. And when I return to these practices, when I return to my Arab Jewish lineages, those values, those Jewish values, really do not match with Zionism. Like they cannot coexist. And that is very profound, just in the thought of how Jewishness is being used and how anti-Zionism is being merged with anti-Semitism. Like when you're holding those values, those Asian values, they actually do not match with each other. And I say to bring the Israeli identity and state to a loving and caring death, and wrote this book as a prayer for it, because I really do not believe that this shape we were given as an identity can exist in a free Palestine. And I don't think we're free in it. So I am today sitting here as someone asked me the other day if I'm a self-hating Jew, and I said that I'm a self-loving Jew for the first time in my life. And I stand here from that place of a deep connection to the land. Like when I'm on the land of Palestine, there are parts of my body that get nourished that don't get that nourishment anywhere else, in those waters, in this land, in those roots, with those olive trees. And I'm also prepared to leave the land if that is what is needed for the land to heal. I believe that we need to bring this identity to a death without anyone giving us the knowing of what's next, and without us planning for what's next, because once we are planning for what's next, it's already contaminated with what we're trying to undo. So this book is a dedication for us to do the healing that we need right now, to imagine otherwise, and really show up for the healing of the land, for the freedom of the land, with no attachment. It cannot be from shame, it cannot be from guilt, it cannot be from punishment. It must be from a place of love and humility. Yeah, that's, I think, what wants to be shared right now. Thank you.
Thank you, meital, for your courage, for sharing your story, and for giving us the gift of this book, Bloodlines, which for friends who might not know is literally hot off the press, I think about a week and a half ago. You refer to yourself as a death laborer, tending to a prayer for the liberation of the land of Palestine and the lands of our bodies, just reconnecting us to the homeland and our bodies. So just welcoming us to continue to drink water, to be in our bodies as we're in this conversation. And there's a conversation you both are having, and I want to just acknowledge at this moment in the conversation the systemic injustice in the room. Sometimes when I facilitate, I bring a small elephant to remind us of the elephant in the room. So I just want to presence that what it means, the relative risk for each of us to speak and take part in a conversation like this can't be understated. That there's that power imbalance, right? And how hard then it is, to undo the learning that says, oh, we can just coexist. It's so easy. Let's just all love each other, rather than understanding the systemic oppression. For me, that's been such a long journey to unpack. And I appreciate the ways you're both speaking to that so much. I wonder if you might share with us a bit about what it means to heal the land, what the land needs to heal as informed by ancestral wisdom.
Please. I'm still really inspired by meital and get emotional. Please go ahead.
I think first of all, just the place where we understand that the land and the land of our body is the same land. And when we uproot an olive tree, and when we murder a child in the West Bank, in Gaza, a person, a being, a human being on the land of Palestine, we're hurting the land. And the land misses the wisdom of the olive tree and the wisdom of the human being in the same way. And we feel it in the same way. So just that understanding that we're not separated from those lands, and that our body is actually in constant communication, that we choose, again, I was trained to cut that communication off, because with that communication, I can't not be an IDF soldier with that communication on. It cannot be. So I think I really, in this moment, want to invite people that share identities with me, Israeli, Jewish, to really find humility and say, we don't know what the land needs. We are living in our wildest imagination right now, and it's horrific for the land and everyone that lives there, including ourselves. So we don't know what the land needs, but we are willing to show up to the healing within our body so that we can show up for the healing that will be asked of us on the land. And again, as I said earlier, it cannot be from a place of shame and guilt and punishment. It has to be from true humility of getting to a place of like, you used to live in this neighborhood I live now. Here's the keys to my home. Would you like me to plant a tree in your backyard? Like, what will it take for us to say that? Not again because someone told us to or because we are punished to, but because we want to. Because we understand that that is the healing of us. Lineages, backward, forward, the land, all those roots inside the land that are burning. I really, in this book, I invite us constantly to go to the undercurrent, like under the occupation, under Gaza right now, under those waters. There's so many roots there that we are connected to, that we are destroying with each bomb that we're dropping. So to really understand that that destruction of human life is a destruction of the land, and the destruction of the land and the uprooting of trees and the uprooting of entire tribal lineages, what the Bedouin people are going through on the land, like we are destroying ourselves. We're destroying a connection with ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, thank you, meital. Yeah, maybe to add maybe one thing I learned in my family, our like ancestors not long time ago used to say, we belong to the land. We don't own the land. This is a modern concept of owning land and selling and buying land. So I think, or I feel, yeah, this idea that we could separate ourselves from the land is like, anyway, and the capitalistic system around the land is a non-healthy system anyway. I can see in my mom generation, where this old, ancient, like the connection to the land and to the trees and to the nature and to the whole elements, to the medicine, to the seasons was very natural, actually. My aunt, she's 95. She's the oldest in my family. And actually, like, you know, now we look at the telephone to see the weather, for example. So she just look at her fingers and she does something. I don't know even how to do it, to be truth. And she will tell you if the, like, what day are we? When is the moon coming? Is it full moon? Is it half moon? There is also fasting with the moon. Like the circle of life is very natural. That's really, to be modest and honest, is more my mom generation. Not even to say my generation and the younger one. I just want to say also, as much as we hear like theories of claiming ownership of the land, actually, if you just drive a little bit around here in West Bank, which is really, I traveled a lot in my life. It's very beautiful and very spiritual and I'm very connected to it. And it's a powerful energy here. The settler movement has really destroyed the beauty and the ecosystem here totally. Where I grew up, like between Jerusalem and Jericho and the desert, I'm a desert person. The valleys, the history, the underneath the land and the water system, where I learned to swim when I was a child, it's all destroyed by settlers, like really, and capitalistic practices, to say.
Yeah. Thank you so much for connecting us to ancestors, land, bodies, this interconnectedness, that there's no separation, that there's a Western thought, right? I used to go to UN conferences on man and the environment, right? What a silly idea. I see so many hands are up. There's such a deep desire for conversation. We won't get to all of the questions, but we're going to move now into the collective community conversation. And again, imagining we're in a living room together, that we're having compassion and kindness for one another, and that we want to really honor and center the voices of our beloved guests today of Souli and Meital. So I want to ask you to keep your question to literally a question, which is, I'm putting on my elementary school hat here, a question is a sentence, right? And it's very common in my Jewish ancestry and culture to interrupt. So if you start going on and on, I might interrupt you. And please know that's out of my love for you and for our guests today, and really wanting to hear. So we can, and wanting to hear from as many of you as possible. And I love that at SAND, there's a tradition of not only sharing a question from the chat box, you can write your question into the Q&A, but again, also inviting you to raise your hand after you've submitted your question so that we can bring you on camera and really see you. And again, like we're in the room together. And that's optional. You don't have to do that. If you want to ask a question anonymously, that's welcome. And we also, of course, we want to center as many diverse voices in the room as possible. And we want to hear from particularly historically marginalized and systemically marginalized people, and centering the voices of those who have directly dealt with oppression or facing oppression in our community. So if you feel comfortable when you're writing in, you know, we won't know otherwise. If you want to share anything about your identity, please feel welcome to do that. No pressure. So for our first question here, you know, I think we're collectively watching the heartbreaking loss of precious life unfolding in Gaza. And there's this profound grief rippling through the human family. And we have somebody here has written in, Zainab, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, and please raise your hand if you would like to come on camera, Zainab, who's written in about their working with young activists in the global South, mostly in Africa and Southeast Asia. And many of them, including themselves, are struggling with feelings of despair in this time. And so asking about how do we hold space for grief and how do we keep hope alive without falling into false optimism? And tech team, do we have Zainab?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Grand Zainab.
Souli, you want to start?
I mean, I'm accused to be the optimistic flag always by all my circles, my family, my friends, my organizations, our activist community. And it's a bit of true accusation. Yeah, one is really hard to sell hope, Zainab, right? It's the hardest thing, how to sell hope between two breaths. For me personally, it's really, to be truth, I'm really gifted. Like it's through my mom and it's like through my DNA. That's honesty, the truth. It's not even connected so much into practical, strategies. This will happen, that will happen. I'm in the moment. I'm excited, despite the pain and everything, and welcoming everything. I feel the energy of the world is shifting. And I feel, especially like your question about the global south, and I'm something connected to, obviously. And I understand like easily we can fall into despair and hopelessness and so on. I don't know. I really feel a lot of energy of hope actually. So I feel the other side of it actually. And if it's maybe strange for you, like I have this even with some people that lives here, like literally in a very harsh conditions. Maybe I know some people might start saying, oh, maybe it's the survival strategy. I don't know. I believe like in let me say like I grew up with a culture like my mom will say, or some of our people like in that generation, in jail time, like for example, something will help. Yeah, like the morning will come and the sun will rise again. Maybe this is cliche, but these things that helped me personally when I was alone in a very harsh conditions. And I really important to say maybe that helps some people I know, myself, is really, really the connection to the land and the trees, what we spoke before, is really helpful to ground us. And maybe seeing like things in a big picture actually, and believing in ourselves also. I don't know how to fall into the victimhood. I don't know this. Like despite everything, I just don't know. I don't experience this personally. And I feel also to be truth, to empower young people and people like our revolution has to be optimistic. Like one of the problems among the activists is this cynical, dry attitude. And I believe it has to be even fun. It's to sustain this journey. I know a lot of people joining us and they leave. They can't stay. It's like 1 year, they got a plan, 1 year, they have the solution, and then they leave. For me, I learned in my jail time, like a lot of things, strategies that help me to stay, especially believing what we do is not necessarily for our generation. And this is really literally coming from olive trees culture, what we say in Arabic. Zainab, do you speak Arabic? Oh, because I might need help with translating this. We say, they planted the trees and we ate. We plant trees and they will eat. Who are they? The next generation. So that actually helps me. All of this, yeah, helps me, for me personally.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I feel that answer was so complete. And I needed to hear it too. I think one thing that I would add is I work as a death care provider, not from like a medical space, from a more caring space. And often when I meet the person who's actively dying, they're in their process, but the people around them, the main caretakers, actually usually need more care from me than the person who's actively dying. And I bring this up because, you know, as a collective right now, as a collective consciousness right now, we are needing to grieve, like deeply, and to care, to grieve deeply. And I feel like there's a way in which, as Souli said, like capitalist systems, ownership systems, you know, business as usual systems, don't want us to feel it. Not to mention, like, you know, Israeli people are not feeling it. We're trained not to feel it. So I think within activists, within young generations, to bring that concept of like sitting together and just caring, just sitting, just doing it together. Just that one photo you saw last week on Instagram of a Palestinian under the rubble that you still cannot process, that you're still like, it's haunting you. Just bring that one image to the circle of the people you're organizing with and be held with it together, light a candle together, drink a glass of water together. And in these processes to relearn how to grieve as a collective, I think there's medicine there for us.
Zainab, for your work, for being out there. I'm sure you have your own answer and way of how you're finding hope amidst it all, or even beyond hope, faith, consistency. I love the Palestinian word sumud, Palestinian Arabic, I should say. Arabic word sumud, steadfastness, right? So I'd like to ask for the next question. If Dima has the hand up and would like to come on and share your question.
Hi, thanks. I wrote it in the chat box, but I'll read it here. My name's Dima Tamimi. I'm a Palestinian American, and I'm married to a Jewish man with deep ties to Israel. As I've just my lived experience, I'm deeply aware of how generational trauma plays a key role in all this. And so I'm curious from both of you, or all of you who are hosting this, do you have thoughts on how we can heal that trauma, not just of the past, but also the new traumas that are being created? Otherwise, it feels very hard to end this cycle.
Mm-hmm. I will start quickly just by saying that something that helps me is not separating them into now and then, and see them as one continuum that also moves us into the future. So like Souli is saying, for the generations to come, right? So like when I heal this in me, I heal my ancestors and I heal my ancestors to come. And all I can do is focus here, not from like an individualistic place, but from like, I have this body intelligence that in my DNA holds all of that already. So finding the practices that can help me identify those knots within my psyche, within my heart, those blocks, those untended trauma, and really tending to them, writing them. Bloodlines is that prayer, is finding a connection with the great grandma I never met and allowing her to hunt me so that those words can come out. So whatever, I always return to the senses. There's something in the senses that can help us identify and communicate. There's something in things that come easy to us, whether it's art, expressions, things like that. Trees, nature, element that are calling you, fire, water. Yeah, finding those ways to connect and then trust that it's happening. Because it's not happening in this way that we were told communication is. And from that place, really in the belief that it's healing the cycle.
Maybe just to add, thank you, Mitala. Nice to meet you, Dima. Yeah, one thing I want to mention also for the previous, Rae mentioned Sumud. My sister's name Sumud, actually. It's very important part of my blood something. Because she born when we were in jail, me and my brother. So this is really important element of resisting and staying strong here. And in regard to trauma, I believe a lot of people here have a lot of experience of trauma healing. One, as you said, like the issue is like ongoing trauma. This is the problem. And we're not talking about the post-trauma and this. That's a real challenge. I know some people here, like kind of underground, do some work actually in the last years using medicine. I'm not sure how much I can share publicly here, to be truth. That's really helpful. I've been part of this also, and it helps me so much to connect and to see the generational trauma and the action we do that coming out of trauma and fear. And I'm not saying this is a solution, but I say to be consciously aware of this. It does help me personally and some people I know around me to choose action out of really love than fear, for example. Just to be aware of it is really helpful. Because some people are thinking, yes, we don't want to stay in this circle, right? And there is a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of denial of that trauma exists even. Because dealing with that trauma is also privilege. I just want to recognize that. And if you think about the Israeli side of the story, like there is a therapy for every person, maybe. But like a lot of people in Combatants for Peace, in my own group, all therapists, a lot. In the Palestinian side, it's a different story because the needs are not the same. Just to agree on the facts here, like it's not the same. I think also one element can be really helpful. One, I think there should be a political solution to say. And then dealing with that trauma will be much easier because it will be past. And maybe to say some part of our own culture that dealt with trauma historically before we connected to the Western style of trauma healing is really important. I including medicine of the nature here and the different tools that's used actually to keep people strong and to help people. And one main element I want to mention, like Meital spoke about it, I think maybe changing the discourse from individualism to a community is a key. And I remember when my older brother was arrested, for example, the solidarity tadamun between the families was very important. Our neighbors, they all came make us food. I was a child, and they, stand with my mom and with us to show empathy. And this always was helpful to face this as community.
Thank you both. This could be a whole practicum of exploring the many ways we could heal the trauma. And Dima, hearing your personal story and heart in it, thank you for sharing with us. Folks might not know, I don't know if Dima is related, but the Tamimi family in the West Bank is a very inspiring family of creative nonviolent resistance to ongoing occupation and settlement expansion. We have a couple of questions here in the chat, and we'll go ahead and spotlight, I believe it's Marika. But I just want to combine these questions about specifically to you, Meital, about how has your family, your friends responded to your authenticity and your current stance, and how do we bring our Jewish communities into this? This is from a different person. How do we bring our Jewish communities into an awareness around the harm of Zionism, and how do we call our kin in rather than calling them out?
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, thank you.
My relationship with my family is complicated for obvious reasons. And so with my friends, I I think there's a few things here. First of all, I want to return to the grief part. If you or someone you know is grieving October 7th deeply and has yet to open that spectrum to grieve anything that's been happening since, that's an invitation for you to invite them into grief. How you do it, I have some suggestions, but it's on an individual and personal relations. When I go back and I go to the West Bank and I return back to Tel Aviv and sit with a friend, and I choose to sit with those friends immediately when I get back, when I am so like gross and activated and like just in every time I'm in the West Bank, I'm in disbelief, even though I know. And I choose to sit with them in that moment and tell them how I feel. Not tell them what I want them to do, not tell them that they need to go, not tell them that, I just tell them how I feel. I tell them about one house that I saw on Shahuda Street. I tell them about something I saw, about one activist that I met, about anything, about the settlement road, something. I just share how it makes me feel, and that opens something. So I think coming back to the body and coming back to your own experience, and also just want to speak to the privilege in all of that. The knowing that we get to sit and educate each other and bring each other in and invite each other in. I think everyone that is living on Turtle Island right now, the most urgent thing for me is to get this government to make Israel stop. And I'm not talking about the current situation, to stop the occupation, period. Sure. Like, how do we get there? And then from that place, let's like do all the healing we can, you know? But like, how do we get people to like get this government in motion? And just again, for the grief part, I just want to say one more word. I'm just going to show this.
Thank you.
So this is my book. This part here is my entire family story and my entire life story. All of it is here.
Thank you.
And the entire indoctrination. This side carries names of Palestinian martyrs that have been murdered since October 7th, on the day that I sent this to print, which at the time there were 9,257 martyred. We all know the number right now, right? So like we can imagine. But that weight, that heavy, that unbelievable destruction, we must find a way to feel it. And if people need like a tangible something, just I really want to beg each of us to find someone who's not feeling it and help them open the heart to one name, to one story, to one thing. Yeah.
Have any of those you love and have loved and have a different stance to now, have any of them been able to hear you so far? And I'm just wanting to acknowledge this extraordinary journey that you have embarked on.
Thank you. They hear me. I don't know if they're listening.
Yes, perseverance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would be remiss to be a blank slate here and not to acknowledge the tremendous shift in public opinion in our, at least American Jewish community, and the tremendous actions. Meital and I have had the opportunity to be in some of these mass Jewish actions that are helping to shift hearts and open people up to separating out the difference between Judaism and Zionism, such an important difference to make. Souli, we have a number of questions here about combatants for peace. It sounds like, what do you mean, combatants peace? And someone is asking, how have the Palestinian and Israeli combatants processed together and separately, and what's going on now? We have very little time remaining. I wish we could expand and freeze time, but I did want you to have an opportunity to share kind of what's going on right now around your work and how people are maybe working together or countering normalization, or what people can do to get involved.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. I want to recognize also some, I know some friends here, so I'm apologizing if I'm not replying in the chat, sorry, because I tried, but and second, some people want to be in touch and talk more, or to be in touch with Combatants or Peace, you definitely will come to. You can write me in Instagram or something. I don't know. Late, maybe at the end, we'll share some channel to communicate. And happy to be in touch. We do need to work together. Like that's, I really believe in coalition work, and now it's global as much needed right now. So for your question directly, the truth is this. Okay. For over the last years, like there were a bunch of different groups. One of them is Combatants for Peace, which is not necessarily right now people that were combatants, like ex-Israeli soldiers, ex-Palestinian prisoners, whatever. We do have people that join that are not from this profile, to say normal people. So since you mentioned October 7, since then, of course, like all these joint spaces has been triggered, of course, October 7 and October 8, October 9, until where we are right now. Not to say that things were good before, honestly, just want to be truth and honest. The violence that was here is like really in a rise in the last years in West Bank and the settlement. Just want to highlight this truth. But I think, yeah, as I said before, like it's easy to really talk about peace and love and freedom, everything from a comfort place, from a privileged place. When it touches you, something touches, like hurts you or me, that's the real test. And for this, I think some people reacted differently. So the events that's happening right now, the war and everything, has really formed a strong alliances. Like some people, I see them are very committed to the cause, very committed to each other. A small minority people, I just want to be clear, because as Zainab mentioned before, we don't want to give fake hope. But this small minority people, like now there is a growing number of people, Palestinians, Israelis, that coming back to work together. I believe even this evening, before we started, the Combatants for Peace was part of a Israeli demonstrations, like 1,000 people against the war in Gaza. Like it was in Tel Aviv. I just didn't watch the WhatsApps, but I saw some of it. And some people left these circles. Yeah, in this situation, people go back to their tribes of defense. And, you know, in Combatants for Peace, for example, people, you choose either non-violence or you choose violence, which means some people, not from my first circle or second circle, from a bit far away circle, choose to go back to the army because they thought the only way is violence. So we say bye-bye, because divorce is legitimate also in this movement, because this is the real time. Because I choose, and some of us has choose, while our families has been hurt, to continue in these circles and committed to these circles in a non-comfort time. So I would imagine, honestly, Combatants for Peace and some of the groups I'm around has really faced until now like a heavy pressure from all sides. The normalization. Of course, I said already, like our group is not a mainstreamer, not in the Israeli side, not in the Palestinian side, not even in my first circles here in Ramallah where I live. For some people, this is a very non-mainstream ideas. But I really think in the last few months, I has been contacted by many people, like positively shocked, I have to say, especially Palestinians, I would say, but not just, that are not typical in my circles, had connected with us because we've been very active in the media. Like in Democracy Now, we wrote in New York Times and other places. So we are not a huge amount of people. So yeah, I feel actually people are looking for alternative for the reality right now.
Yes, I'm just hearing you and the need for people to look for those alternatives and the small but mighty force that you are in a stand for nonviolence. And I again don't want to interrupt, but I'm aware that our time is almost complete. I just want to invite you to finish your thought, and then we're going to move to a close.
Yeah, I finished. But yeah, I just, as you said, because of the time, anyone really affiliated feel the call want to cooperate with us, where we like now want to work more, like also in the global shifting energy that we feel right now. We need the voices that really support nonviolent struggle to end the occupation and end the genocide that happened right now in Gaza. That's more even important. And make change for like what we call is really freedom for the oppressors and the oppressed. Basically, that's where we are.
Thank you.
I think it's gonna happen. Yeah. Thank you.
You just answered about 2/3 of the questions in the chat, which were, how can we help? What can we do? You know, really taking to heart this charge to take action. Meital, go ahead.
I was just saying, inshallah, amen.
Yeah.
It'd be so. Also, I know that people have wrote me in the chat too. I don't have the skill set to be here and there. I didn't see any of it, but I invite you to reach out to me. Yeah, if you want to talk more.
Thank you both so much for allowing us to witness and be in the witness with you both. After hearing so many stories of transformation, I know that it comes with a responsibility that we carry your story forward, that we do something, that we be someone, be that light in the world. We're sharing some links in the chat to resources that we will also share with the recording in the email follow-up that you will get. I want to encourage you to make a donation to support the organizations working to support those on the front lines who are the most hungry, the most in harm's way. The organization we're lifting up today is Save Gaza's Children. And this is one way you can show your reciprocity, right? And you can receive that link also in the follow-up. You know, Meital mentioned that they used half of their book, more than half their book is a list of names. Can you carry just one name with you of someone who has died in the last 3 months of this ongoing nightmare, and create space in your daily life to grieve? Because we know that without grief, we can't show up for the real peace work, right? And be in that wholeness. And then it's my job to encourage you to join us in taking action in whatever way, wherever you can. Every single phone call to a lawmaker, every single sign, every single conversation, every post, every poem, every kite flown. We never know which thing will make the difference toward that collective liberation that we are talking about. But it all matters, you know, and we hear that consistently from my friends in the United States. We have a disproportionate responsibility right now because the weapons have our address on them. They come from our country. So thank you to all of you for what you're already doing and what you will do. I want to say a deep bow of gratitude to everyone who has helped to co-create this, especially to Zaya and Ritzio for weaving the basket of this community so beautifully, and to everyone, Sarah and Stacy and Lisa, who are behind the scenes making magic happen so we can be in this digital living room together. And there's more opportunities to be in conversation. I wish for more opportunities to answer all of the questions that have come in this beautiful Q&A portal. Thank you all for raising your hand, for saying, I'm curious, I want to learn, I want to be in conversation. Keep raising your hand, keep asking, and keep reaching out to one another. Of course, you don't need me to remind you to keep drinking water, to resource, to try to, if you can today, if you're able, get outside after this gathering and connect with some aspect of the nature where you are, right? And let it compost to the earth, give it to the earth, whatever doesn't serve you, whatever you need to let go of, so that we can keep doing this work together. Thank you. Appreciate you, sending so much love to everyone.
So much. Thank you, everyone, for this heartwarming conversation. We all need this space where we can be together, uncomfortable, like meital invited us, and together. That's not an easy task. So we hope to continue. This is not going to be the last conversation, and stay together in these spaces so we can learn from one another. And thank you, everyone who joined. Thank you, Sentin, Lisa, Stacy, Sarah, and thank you, Souli. It's been such a pleasure meeting you in Ramallah a year ago, and that has opened a journey for us as well with the film, and just a huge learning that's continuing every day now. And thank you, meital, for birthing this beautiful book, so timely. I read every day from your book, and I weep and I cry and I connect to the mother that is holding all of this and us. And thank you, Rae, for holding this beautiful, not container, there must be a more poetic word. You said
Vessel.
so, yeah, to be together. And thank you for your incredible work, your incredible activist work that you do daily to make a difference for liberation, for the oppressed and the oppressor, like Souli said.
Yeah, and thank you, each and every one of you, because it takes strength and courage to be able to stay here in the discomfort and feeling our grief, feeling our pain, and so it's an honor to be in circle with all of you. You are all welcome in our living room at any time. Come back.
And may we let our hearts continue to break. I think that's there's no way, that's the only way, not to avoid the pain and the suffering. Thank you, Haneen. I don't know if you're still with us, for your beautiful voice and bringing the music. And maybe we'll have conversation with Haneen next. We'll see what's possible.
Yeah, I support that.
Yeah.
We are actually doing event with Haneen next week. I will send you the email.
Okay, you want to mention when and can people join?
1st of February. I will send you the information. We invite, so you can invite everybody. Yeah.
Beautiful. And Haneen, if you can share the lyrics of your song, that would be lovely to share with the recordings.
Yeah, I will share them, and Stacy, maybe you can forward them to everyone, or Souli. Thank you. Thank you. I also want to share words of gratitude, actually, because this was very touching and very deep, heartwarming space in the midst of heartbreak, actually, times. Yeah, just gratitude for Souli and for meital. A lot of gratitude.
Family, Haneen.
So I think we will just bid you all adieu with some music. And we go on our way, we go in peace and fortitude, and with that samud, that steadfastness to keep believing in a more just and a more liberated world for all. Kenny Hiratzon, inshallah, may it be so.